Hey there, Heather. Ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video. And we're doing the NBA. I know I've been talking about free agent signs, best and worst of the major sports. NBA is the fourth and final major sport. So obviously, I'm wearing the jersey of one Kyle Lowry, number 7, lucky number 7. So that's the jersey I'm going to wear. And I'm going to look at the top 10 best NBA free agent signs of all time. So, anyway, that is what we do here. There were two that I found out that were kind of re-signings, so that's why they're 10 and 9 completely. So anyway, so number 10 is David Robinson, and number 9 is Tim Duncan. Both from the Spurs, both big re-signings that worked out. Well, David Robinson was the number one pick in 1987 by the Spurs, winning the draft lottery. Robinson did well for Navy, getting them to what, the Sweet 16 at least. And then, well, when they won the draft lottery, the San Antonio GM was questioned by James Brown of CBS that they know about the 2-year naval commitment because athletes who compete in the armed forces had to do a 2-year term of service until they can get into one of the major leagues. In 1995, I think they broke that rule. But anyway, yeah, the Spurs GM said we waited 17 years. What's two more? Is it 15? No, I think it's 14 years. No, no, I can't remember. 17 years. What's two more? Basically, he's saying that, well, the Spurs were picked up from the ABA and all that. And then they knew they were going to have the thing and said, we'll wait 2 years. And it worked out. David Robinson was the man and all that. The Spurs would build around him and win multiple championships. And one of those guys picked up to help David Robinson was Tim Duncan from Wake Forest. Spurs picked him first overall. A lot of people said Spurs were freaking tanking like shit. And then practically Duncan worked out well. He was actually a professional swimmer at St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. But then there was a hurricane that destroyed the pool, so he turned to basketball. So Duncan did his job. The Twin Towers with Duncan and Robinson winning a couple titles. So yeah, it was a championship culture. All right. Number 8 is DeMarcus Cousins of the New Orleans Pelicans, 2017. So DeMarcus Cousins was this guy from the University of Kentucky who did well in college, and they went to Sacramento with the Kings, who just couldn't make the playoffs in any season. So anyway, DeMarcus would sign with New Orleans, helping him out to get a front court alongside Anthony Davis, known as the Brow for the Unibrow. But yeah, DeMarcus Cousins did his job, and you know it worked out for New Orleans in a sense. Like they were trying to get people to take him seriously, and they kind of did. Number 8. Oh, no, wait, sorry. Wrong numbers. Sorry. Number 7 is Ray Allen, 2012. The Miami Heat knew they needed some help with the big three of Bosh, LeBron, and Wade. So in 2012, they actually went out to grab Ray Allen from the Celtics. Ray Allen was brought in from the Bucks to the Celtics to make Boston a big three of their own with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, winning the title in 2008. So anyhow, Allen did his clutch shooting, especially in the NBA Finals of 2013, and it worked out well. Of course, he was the guy who kind of saved Miami season in Game 6 against the Spurs in 2013. He had a clutch three-pointer with like 10 seconds left to force the game to overtime, which they won, and then they won Game 7. It was vital. I mean, Miami knew that they had the big three, but they needed another piece, so they took Ray Allen, and it worked. Number 6 is Steve Nash of the Phoenix Suns. So what happens is that Steve Nash was a great player for the Suns. Well, he was a Dallas guy and all that. So he was drafted by, I think it was drafted by the Suns, right? Yeah, he was drafted by the Suns out of Santa Clara in that famous 96 draft. And then was traded to Dallas in a move. And then once he turned to a free agency from Dallas, and yeah, he was in the basketball movie Like Mike, little Bow Wow doing the job. Anyway, Nash revitalized the Suns when he was picked up in 2004, and it worked out great. Few forget about the slam dunk contest thing alongside Amari Stoudemire in 2005, in which Steve Nash got a ball. Well, the ball was off the backboard, and then he headed it towards Amari Stoudemire, who did a 360 and slammed it down. And then they yelled, "Steve Nash for MVP! Steve Nash for MVP!" Nash will win back-to-back MVPs. One of them deserved, one of them not. Phoenix turned out to be an offensive juggernaut, although they didn't give Steve Nash a title, which sucks for the Canadian and all that. I mean, like Rick Fox won a lot of titles as a Canadian. Number 5 is Chris Bosh of the 2010 Heat. Yeah, you knew this was critical and all that. Alongside LeBron and Dwayne, it made Miami a big three and all that. So once LeBron signed, and Dwayne Wade was still with Miami, of course, part of the 2003 draft, Chris Bosh knew he had to leave Toronto for Miami, which sucks because, he was the big star for the Raptors up north. I mean, we had a few playoff runs with him, but Bosh just basically left town, and it was like, what the fuck? And then, um, he ended up in Miami, winning a few titles. Unfortunately, his career would be cut short due to injuries and illness. So, can't hate on the guy. He just wanted to go where the titles were. And number 4 is Kawhi Leonard, a double free agent signing, both with the Raptors and the Clippers. Of course, you know my feelings about the Clippers and all that stuff. But the fact is that Kawhi was not a free agent when he was a Raptor, signed to the Raptors. My fault. I keep forgetting. Anyway, Kawhi Leonard came from San Diego State, not much of a basketball school. But anyhow, Kawhi was there for the Spurs and won a Defensive Player of the Year, I think, and won NBA Finals MVP in 2014 as the Spurs took care of those pesky Miami Heat and ruined their three-peat chances. Unfortunately, in the 2017-18 season, he was held out of games, even though he said he was medically cleared. So Kawhi's thing happened, and the Clippers, So anyway, Kawhi was traded to the Raptors as the Raptors got rid of DeMar DeRozan, which was not a popular move north of the border. I can tell you that much. So the big move there, Kawhi went to Toronto. He tried to say he was a fun guy, but his weird laugh, something like that, happened, and they mocked him on the internet for that. Nevertheless, he worked out number 2 in your programs, and then in the second round against the Sixers, game tied at 90, he took the ball and then shot a 15-foot jumper that went clang, 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 clang through. And Kevin Harlan's famous call of Game Series Stratos won! And that was one of the biggest moments of all time for the Raptors. They took care of the Sixers. They were going to the Eastern Finals, not against LeBron. Thank God for that, in a sense. It was Milwaukee and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Milwaukee was up 2-0 in the conference finals, but Kawhi took the team on his back. Raptors won 4 straight. They got to the NBA Finals against Golden State, who were juggernaut still, but injury prone. And Kawhi won Finals MVP with them, and it looked good. But then he decided to sign with the Clippers, spurning Toronto for Los Angeles. And, everyone thought Kawhi was going to stay in Toronto. I mean, he played 1 year, got them a title, maybe play a few more years. But no, he went to the Clippers. And, it was just pathetic and all that. Some say Kawhi Leonard's a top 5 Raptor. He can't be a top 5 Raptor. He only played 1 fucking season. Understand? Number 3 is Kevin Durant, 2016 Warriors. This is kind of the old trope of title chasing and super teams. And all that. Kevin Durant came from Texas University. He was drafted by the Sonics. He played 1 year for Seattle, and then they turned into the Oklahoma City Thunder. He won the 2014 MVP. He thanked his mom, saying that she was the real MVP because she had 2 boys. She was struggling to make ends meet. She would often go to bed hungry to feed the boys. Durant, and his Thunder were bit by Golden State in the playoffs because OKC was up 3-1 on the Warriors, who had won 73 games that year, and were looking to go to the finals. And then, of course, that Golden State came back. They've got bit 3-1 in the finals. So, yeah, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And then, of course, Kevin Durant decided to go to Golden State. If you can't beat them, join them. And fans were pissed off, rightfully so. Durant went to Golden State, got 2 titles, cemented their dynasty. It was over. Okay. Number 2 is Shaq. To the Lakers, 96. Shaq was this big guy from LSU who went to the first round, the first pick of the 92 draft to Orlando. Orlando needed someone like that. Shaq nearly led Orlando to the playoffs in his first year. They missed by one freaking game. So anyway, Shaq was known for breaking backboards and all of that. So they had to change the backboards a bit. He led Orlando to the 1995 NBA Finals against the pesky Houston Astros. No, sorry, Houston Rockets. I knew I was going to say that wrong. They ended up losing in 4 straight, and then Shaq had it. Not memorable season 96. So Shaq was a free agent. Orlando didn't think they could keep him for how much money he was about to make. So they did that. They let him go, and wouldn't you know it, those pesky LA Lakers needed a center. After a big trade with the Hornets, getting the number 13 pick overall, which was Kobe Bryant in that 96 draft, in exchange for Vlade Divac, they needed a center. So they picked Shaq up. And of course, Los Angeles had the money. Jerry West knew what he was doing. So Shaq was signed and transferred the Lakers into a title contender. It wouldn't take till 2000 before the Lakers finally got themselves to the NBA Finals, and then they went at 3 straight. It was like Shaq and Kobe were going to be best teammates, but unfortunately Kobe had the whole Colorado rape trial thing that the defendant refused to testify, which is kind of a signal that it was probably just a money grab, what she was trying to do. But she didn't do it. And, Kobe and Shaq just couldn't get along. They traded Shaq to Miami and kept Kobe, and it worked out. Shaq won a title with Miami. Kobe won a few more titles with the Lakers. So why fight it? And number 1 is, of course, you knew it, LeBron James. From the Cavs to the Heat, 2010. LeBron was his high school star and would sell out games on ESPN. Cleveland won the draft lottery, and obviously, LeBron's an Ohio product. Of course, you're going to take LeBron James. Why wouldn't you? So Cleveland won the lottery. Luckily enough, a lot of people said it was just fixed and all that. I don't blame them. Yeah, the 2003 draft is just as good as the 96 draft. So anyway, LeBron doing his job. And of course, that was when high schoolers could be drafted from high school to the NBA draft. There were some hits and some massive misses. Kwame Brown, I'm looking at you, boy. Oh, your boy LeBron. So anyway, LeBron did his job with Cleveland and got them to be a title contender. And then they went to the 2007 final, lost to San Antonio because of their inexperience. 3 years later, he decided to make a move. But not just any move. He decided to announce his free agency in a way that we never saw this coming. He booked a 1-hour special on ESPN called The Decision, in which he would tell the whole world about his decision to play for another team, or even stay in Cleveland. Of course, the Boys and Girls Club were there with some of their members, and LeBron did that. But LeBron, half an hour into the thing, says he was going to take his talent to South Beach, which meant Miami, and Miami fans were happy. Cleveland fans were upset. They tore down his billboards, defaced him, and basically burned his jersey. I mean, you can't blame those guys. And of course, it's stupid because LeBron freaking could have just easily said that thing, and even like 30 minutes instead of 60, that would have been okay. But no, he went with 60, a little bit of egotistical crapola. So anyway, he went to Miami. They had Dwayne Wade, but they got another piece in Chris Bosh, as I said in the earlier entry. And then, they were the big 3 and got themselves a few titles. They lost in 2014. LeBron decided, strangely enough, after the 2014 loss to actually take a opt-out clause and go back to Cleveland. Cleveland fans were happy, hopefully trying to fix their charred LeBron James jerseys. And it worked. 2016, they won the title and gave Cleveland their first pro sports championship as a city in 52 years. So LeBron did his job. But then he left for the Lakers in 2018. Of course, that was actually perfect timing for the Raptors because they didn't have to deal with LeBron in the playoffs and all that. So it all worked out for everybody, I suppose. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond, a Duke.